I have 11 days left in the year. I am one half of one round away from finishing A tier in the tier list, and I have 13 decks left in the tournament out of the original 48. So I think I've got a decent chance of finishing it, especially since the busy part of December is pretty much over now. So the first news on the tier list, I'm starting to finally fill in A+, with Ninja's Tea having made it. Ninja Zombies has not lost a game yet. Ninja Knights lost one game in round 2, but it's won its other 3 matches, and so two Ninja decks are in round 4 already. Ninjas have an A+ rating. Of the other factions that could make it to A+, Frozen and Avengers are both one win away, that is one game win away, from making A+, because they both already have a deck in 4A with Grim Frozen Tales and Exploring Avengers. Avengers also have a second shot at it with Avenging Knights, so it will be very surprising if Avengers do not make A+. Then again, I think we kind of knew Avengers were A+ ahead of time. Inca Dragons, neither half of that can make it. The news here is that Dragons cannot make it. Why can't Dragons make it? Because Zombie Dragons went down to Grim Frozen Tales in round 3A. Teddy Wizards, I don't think either half of that can make it. No. Beauty and the Beast, they have not managed to put a deck in round 4 yet. So both Beauty and the Werebeast and Mage and the Beast are both in it. If both decks make at least a draw in 3B, Beauty and the Beast earns A+. Mages cannot make it. Werewolves, I don't think. Werewolves cannot make it. Princesses and Changer Bots cannot make it. Knights. Knights, if they get at least 1 win out of 2 on Avenging Knights, they are through. They have A+, because they already have Ninja Knights in round 4, and Ignoble Elves, neither of those factions can make it. So really, what is it? Frozen, Avengers, Beauty and the Beast, and Knights are the 4 factions that could make A+, if they get the draws or wins that they need in round 3B. Now, with that said, stuff I most want to talk about is the decks that we lost around the way in rounds 2B and 3A, because those are the decks that I'm not going to get to talk about anymore in the future. Let's start at the top of round 3A with the Steampunk Incas. This has been an annoying deck for every better deck that had to face it, because one game in every 2-game match, they did something crazy, like actually go infinite. I've been getting better at managing to pull off their infinite combo with Workshop and Golden Condor and Temple of the Sun, and as a matter of fact, against the Exploring Avengers, they actually did that, and for a minute I thought they'd won the second game. I originally wrote down a win for them for the second game, and then I took another look back. What happened was they went infinite when they were behind by a whole bunch of victory points. They had 2 bases they could score safely, and then they had to set up ahead of time. You know, they got to optimize their hand because they had drawn their deck, actually drawn their deck multiple times in the process of going infinite. That's what they do with the combo. But they couldn't break, because they only had 2 minions in play, and they didn't have enough actions in their deck to break 2 other bases with just action power. There were 4 bases in play. So they could break the 2 bases with their 2 minions, one of which I think was a solo, and then they could break and win a 3rd base with actions, but if they did that, they lost the game because Exploring Avengers made it to 15. So as a result, they had to put 1 armory on each base, or something like along the lines of 1 armory on each base with enough actions there. It was a situation where now I'm actually... Okay. At the time, I didn't see the win they had. Now I'm realizing there was a way for them to do it. They needed to tuck 1 armory at 1 base, whole bunch of actions at the second base that they weren't breaking, the other armory, and the Golden Condor in hand. I figured out that Golden Condor had to be in hand. So if that arrangement actually was possible for them to have 0 power in play and be ready to Golden Condor base break, which would have won the game. However, I'm still not changing the result because A, that was really hard to find in the moment, and B, if Exploring Avengers had done a better job with Glory Hounds, they could have caught the workshop. If I'd played their Glory Hounds better, Explorers Glory Hounds against Steampunk Incas is very important because you can prevent workshop from coming into play in the first place. And if I'd been more careful, I could have stopped the infinite from happening. But yeah, it's interesting that I'm looking at this a couple days ahead of time and realizing, oh, there actually was a win there. Because I had worked out that there was no way. There's no way for Steampunk Incas to take an arrangement of their cards, which does not allow Exploring Avengers to break a base next turn. Exploring Avengers was 2 power away from a base solo anyway. Okay, there was a way. Lonely Armory on one base, whole but half the actions in your deck on the second base. This is the other 2 bases are getting broken that turn, so you can't, anything you stick on them is going to leave play. And then make sure you've got the Condor in hand, and that way you can replay the Armory and all the other things to break a base the next turn. I'm not 100% sure because I still can't see the board if they could have spared enough actions in play to make sure that they scored a base break on the next turn with Golden Condor. But when you think about it, Armory plus a bunch of other actions, you're probably going to get a big enough Armory to get the base break. I do recall they only had 1 Child of the Sun in play, so they definitely could have had a Child of the Sun in the hand and gotten 1 spare action after playing all the stuff that was already in play. And that means that they could have dropped a second Armory from hand. So they definitely could have scored a base break. So this long word salad I just said is basically gives you an idea of if you manage to go infinite with Steampunk Incas when you're in a situation where it's really hard to avoid ending the game with your opponent winning, that's the arrangement you want to set up so that you can blow the game up next turn while forcing your opponent to find a solo if they want to win. Second, in any case, Steampunk Incas did all the garbage that they're known for doing when they get lucky. It's just that they did it late enough in the game that they were too far behind and Explorer Avengers put them away anyway. Second deck to leave us, Mad Scientist Werewolves. Ninja Zombies kind of still hasn't been tested because Ninjas definitely beats Werewolves in general. Mad Scientists, are better against Ninjas, but because of the Poison Tiger Assassin combo, all the protection cards are just not as good as they look. Ninjas have ways to remove all of the protection cards, and so Madware Scientists still cannot reliably set up moon-touched combos, and they kind of got run over. Ninja Zombies is really, really good at playing bruiser games. We lost Hydra Sharks, and that was one of the 2 matches I kind of wanted to stream. I've been going a little hard. I'm trying to push how long I can practice the violin each day, because the second week of January, I want to play a full-on classic series, and I'm trying to have my body trained up to the point where I'll get through 2 rehearsals in the same day fine. I don't know whether I'll be there yet. I'm sure I can do 1 full-length rehearsal on the stuff we're playing fine, but I would like to not have to gas out of the doubles. But with that, yeah, I've been pushing stuff a bit, and I didn't really feel like streaming. After I felt more like rushing through the last couple matches and getting this video out. But Hydra Sharks is fast. Big Hero Grannies is fast. Big Hero Grannies had a little trouble lining up 2 minions on the bottom of the deck in 1 game. But that was the same game where Hydra Sharks had a little bit of a hard time lining things up. And Grannies were also able to drop Great Granny and hunt down helicopters to get rid of them, which sets Sharks back in their development. I think Hydra is definitely the best Sharks partner in tier. The synergy is great. Big Hero Grannies, they're 6-0. It's no shame in losing to them. We lose Hydra Sharks to a truly worthy opponent to take them down. We lost Zombie Dragons, and in the process, we lost zombies or dragons from the running for collecting an A+ rating. Zombies A+, I actually would have considered a little bit weird because they are a solitaire. They're solitaire and they're not so incredibly fast in the burst. Like ninjas, yeah, no. Zombies never really felt A+ to me because they were always a little bit too dependent on the opponent not finding their own good enough turn to beat what the zombies already have in play. And they're both passive. They're passive in a way that works well together. They're passive, and the zombies can passively say, you don't get to remove all the Imperial Dragons, so we are drawing the cards, and we are going to be able to do things. But Grim Frozen Tales just edged them out in the first game. Grim Frozen Tales, I think, really showed off. It is both this and the next match showed the more flexible and agile deck with better options was able to win in 2 matches, both Zombie Dragons and Sinister Avengers getting knocked out. Both of these matches, both decks in the match were fast, hit hard, could do good things, but Grim Frozen Tales and Ninja Knights had more options to be able to find the right play, rather than just a play that does good things, a play that does the right good things. In the case of Grim Frozen Tales, they edged out that first game. They were just able to pass first player advantage. In the case of Ninja Knights, though, this is a terrible matchup for Sinister Avengers. I don't think Avengers really like playing against ninjas, a reliable ninja deck. Sinister doesn't like playing against ninjas either because... yeah, Sinisters have 2s that they're used to having be bigger than 2s. Those can get Tiger Assassined. They can also be Seeing Star, but usually Ninja Knights has something better to do with its action play most of the time. Assassination is there to deal with some big stuff. Ninja Knights has the consistent draw because it has Invisible Ninja now. And Sinister Avengers, when facing the ninja removal, wasn't able to push the tempo effectively most of the time, and so Ninja Knights had plenty of the time. I think they just scored all their VP actions in both games. They were way behind, 9-5. Yeah, they were behind 9-5 in Game 2. And then they grailed and scored both of the single VP actions in the same turn. And then on the next turn, they broke a base with King Arthur and Excalibur solo. And then I think they won Jungle Oasis, and that was 10 points in a row, and they won it 15-9. It was a very impressive run. And it's Knights, VP scoring, plus Ninja control to deal with whatever the opposing deck has built. That is really potent. That is why Sinister Avengers are out of the tournament at 5-3. And then the decks that drew, we're going to get to see them again. Some of the surprises... well, Ignoble Elves, not really a surprise. You can tell from the scores that Inca Dragons had the stronger side of the draw. Inca Dragons, I believe, is the better deck. Ignoble Elves does quite well against Dragons. We've seen that in previous rounds. They played Zombie Dragons previously, but it wasn't in 2B. I think it was in 2A. Yeah, they drew Zombie Dragons in 2A. And then they drew Inca Dragons, an even stronger Dragons deck in 3A. So they can hold up to the best of the Dragons decks. They're a much better deck than the sum of their parts, and their parts aren't individually that great, but together they're good. Teddy Wizards, the reason Princess Changers is still in the tournament is because Teddy Wizards had one of the same kind of games that resulted in Hydra Wizards leaving the tournament, which is that they couldn't draw their extra action plays, couldn't bring out their Titan at the right time because they couldn't find extra actions, and as a result, well... they don't really have a good defensive mode. Their defensive mode consists of Cuddle and Bear Picnic. And that's not enough when you aren't making plays yourself. And so Princess Changers, Princess Changers is a very, very strong tempo check on the opponent, and so you stumble Princess Changers is bringing out... they're bringing out their Titan, they're getting an extra +3, they're breaking things. They might be able to break things and move their Titan away in the same turn, and then they're going to snowball. These were matches where all the decks were fast, and the first player won both games. So now let's go to what we lost in round 2B. I do think it is surprising that after starting 2-0, Mage and the Beast drew 3 matches in a row. It seems like now they are running into opponents that are fast enough that Mage and the Beast cannot steal games where their opponent plays first. Mage and the Beast, they won 10 games in a row, and I sort of thought they would keep winning a bit, and instead they've been drawing, but we'll see what happens when they play against Teddy Wizards. Oof. These are 2 very, very fast decks that are playing next round. Okay. We lost MOE Grannies. This was a place where MOE was just too weak at this point. Zombie Dragons is also, it's a really bad matchup for MOE Grannies, because you're going to be playing, you don't have the removal to bash through zombies. You're going to be playing into Imperial Dragons. They're going to have time with the zombie extra place to set up defenders everywhere, and then you kind of get crushed by the VP stuff. You've got MOE, so you've got your own VP, but because the Dragons have zombies, Dragons have the aggressive speed, that they can keep things breaking if you want to go into MOE alt VP mode. And as it comes out, Zombie Dragons has what it takes. Most Dragons decks are going to run into MOE VP mode. Plus VP without breaking bases tends to beat VP adjustments 2 bases, because that makes the Dragons have to go aggro most of the time. Not with zombies. It's with zombies, they've got enough. Dragon Pirates went down to Sinister Avengers. Dragon Pirates are basically 2 good factions that work well together, but not well enough. Sinister Avengers just does a little more every turn. Vigilante Knights, I think, I expected them to do better. They looked really good in qualifiers. Frozen, again, Frozen is really, really good. This is just 2 really good factions together. And while Vigilante Knights has fantastic synergy, it just felt like non-Knights Vigilante facing off against Princesses, which was always terrible for them. Feels like you're facing a deck with a similar plan that does a little bit more. Hydra Lions went down to Princess Changers. Hydra Lions was just sort of waiting to land bad draws in 2 games in a row, I think. They can have some really good games. They do not have the same... I don't think they have quite the consistency level of Hydra Sharks. There's fantastic synergy to be had there, but it's also... It's just really easy to end up arranging the cards wrong with this deck. It's still very good, but wasn't fast enough. And Eddie Grimm's, Ninja Knights is good. That's more the case than Eddie Grimm's had bad games. Ape Nightmares, they're out. Ape's decks, no matter how much synergy, are always going to have the problem that there's going to be some sort of minion-based control that happens to them, and in this case it was Ignobles and Elves that had that. And I think also one of the games Ape Nightmares got the Zombie Duck Toy late. The other game, they kind of didn't have time to keep replaying it, and Ignoble Elves just ran away with it. So, yeah. Nightmare Before Christmas and Apes are now out with that. So what we've got remaining... 3 undefeated decks: Exploring Avengers, Ninja Zombies, Big Hero Grannies. All of them are decks that have really earned their way to 6-0 by playing some fantastic games. Ninja Knights and Grim Frozen Tales are also up here. All of these, I think, are just... They're among the... They're sitting in 4A without having to play 3B for a reason. And we've got the next 8 down here that are going to play. Princess Changer Bot strikes me as the deck that maybe doesn't deserve to still be here out of these 8. Really, though, any of them could go down. I'm looking at this. Inca Dragons isn't based on heavy removal. Not being able to kill anything with Wyvern kind of sucks, but, like, they might have a better matchup. I think they might match up well against Frozen Avengers because they don't care too much that you can't run Frozen out of minions. They're, like, Inca Dragons is going to have a different type of gameplay. This one, I think first player is heavily favored in both games because these decks are so fast that a turn makes a big difference. Yeah, Beauty and Werebeast should go to 8 and 2 here. This one, okay, this is a bad matchup for Ignoble Elves now because there's nothing that you can hit there's nothing that you can hit with a Flower Child in the opposing deck. It's everything is at least 4 power. And you don't have a way to give it -1. So Flower Child is just a 2. It's a 2 that you can give away to help bring out Gregor, but that's about it. And so, yeah, this is a really bad matchup. So this is probably where Ignoble Elves end up going home, I would guess. I would guess these two, I think the stronger deck wins. This match is highly likely to be a draw, and this match, honestly, all 3 results could occur. But with luck, I'll have either 10 or 11 decks probably making it out of this round total. Which might mean that somebody is losing and still getting to play round 4. But, playing round 4 and getting fed to the Exploring Avengers. And I'm going to see how fast I can get through the rest of these games, because I would like to make this stay the 2022 Class A Championship, and it is currently December 20th. Oh yeah, so last thing, I sort of posted this in the Discord. I did an update to my 1v1 data sheet. You can find this, like, literally, I think if you Google Nelligen's 1v1, you should find it. I added everything through round 2A, I think. No, everything through round 2. So the round 3A matches are not in this, but they are. Everything else is in here. You can see Ninja's T is looking really hot here, but with 6 games played, there's no telling where it is. Beauty and the Beast is at 7th. Avengers have moved up a bit because they stomp in Class A and do not stomp in Class S, which means that when they get to play a whole bunch against Class A stuff, my god, look at the number of games I played with them, 246. And they're as new as Marvel. That's a lot of that is from the Marvel bracket, just involving a ton of games. But yeah, I've played them a lot too, and I'm good with them. Class A is a favorable environment for the Avengers to win a lot of games. Knights are good. Grannies are really good. No, honestly, I'm not sure any of Granny's kit is necessarily terrible in S. So they may not just be picking on weaker factions. They may really be like a 1700-ish strength top 10 faction right now, which is crazy to say because before 10th edition, I'm pretty sure they were the worst faction in 1v1 if you didn't count NTs. Now that they have a Titan, they might very well legitimately be a top 10 faction. Frozen is... Yeah, Frozen's good. Nightmare is good, but like the partners they have the most synergy with are not the strongest factions because playing actions on minions is in general a weak strategy in 1v1. So as a result, like they're a strong faction with random partners that doesn't necessarily have decks that it can play at a really, really high level, but it can still be the best faction in a draft pool. Lion King's okay. It's very roulette-ish. Werewolves, yeah, I said they peaked higher in qualifiers. They were like 1,700 at some point. Then they got to the point where they were facing enough ninjas and facing enough things that could beat them that they started to come back down to earth. Their strength very much depends on what they have to play against. The stuff in gray I haven't played yet. I just put them here so that I've got the correct numbers in my JavaScript code, so that I can just enter the stuff and it'll work when I start playing with them. Big Hero 6 is... I don't believe Big Hero 6 is as good as this number, by the way. They've just been playing a lot with grannies, and they're dominant with grannies, but, like, every other Big Hero 6 deck got knocked out pretty easily. So I think this is... They're not quite 1560 good. These, we'll see how good they are. Mad Scientist T, I've put them in a funny spot, so, again... You see where Mad Scientist NT is at 1535. Mad Scientist T is more than 13 points stronger than NT. I have to play them more with partners that are good with them when they have the Bride, and their rating should go up. Fairies, oh god. Yeah, the new stuff tempos them. The new stuff doesn't care about -4 to the degree that everything old cared about getting -4. Yeah, Kung Fu Tea only got to play 2 games. I don't know how much better they are. I don't think it's the most impactful Titan out there, but it probably improves them to like 1550 or 1600. Good. Aladdin is fine. I really think Aladdin is going to get a lot of draws, because it's one of those decks. Aladdin and Lion King have to draw the right cards to do good things. Mulan is fine. I haven't played the new 3 factions at all. What else do we have that's interesting to say? Yeah, Egyptians T is better than this number. The only games they got to play really were with factions, which worked really well with Egyptians NT, and then they got paired against really strong opponents. And I think Egyptians T has a little bit of Peter Principle thing going, so it's got to get in some friendlier matchups to prove how good it is. I don't think Wreck-It Ralph is really a very good faction in 1v1, and it certainly I've been pairing it with stuff like Steampunk, so it's had partners that work with it. It just hasn't been winning games. Yeah, and that's sort of all the stuff that's in there. I'm very curious if you guys think that critters actually do counter princesses. I mean, I put my theory in here. Big bodies are burst targets, and critters is a burst faction. I can see Explorers T versus Beauty and the Beast being a real counter. Like, you can look at here. There's a lot of things. If you see actual score 0 out of 4, that means, like, it's only 2 matches played, and so it was a very unexpected result, but you kind of have to look at what the partner factions are to see if maybe the problem is that the partner factions were where the real counter was. But I put some notes on some of this stuff, like Avengers versus Sinister Six. Avengers win even more than you expect, and you expect them to win most of their games against Sinister Six because they're way higher rated. But I think Sinister Six hates bulk in the opposing deck. Frozen versus Sharks, I believe that's a real counter. You do not want any sort of destruction playing against Frozen. It's just like, basically you're playing against zombies. Except zombies, but they sing, and there's 6 flats in the graveyard. And the little girls want to learn that on the violin, but there's 6 flats in the song, and she's not ready to learn it, especially with all the syncopations, and it's kind of sad because she really loves the song, but you know you can't teach the student how to play Let It Go yet. And it feels like you really, really want to teach a student how to play Let It Go if you're playing any sort of destruction faction going in against Frozen, and like all the flats just like stop you. That's the weirdest analogy I think I've ever made on one of these videos. Yeah, and some of the stuff here, like Big Hero Grannies showed up. I think it's worth pointing out that Orcs Warriors, even after getting slaughtered in the Class A Championships, still shows up at a significantly synergistic deck. Why is this? That's because Warriors got the crap kicked out of it all qualifier season. And as a result, like, the way the data works, Warriors is quite a bit lower rated now than it was before, so Orc Warriors doesn't have to do as well in order to be definitely better than the average of the factions. Both of these factions are worse than they used to be, so Orc Warriors' somewhat worse performance is still exceptional relative to its factions. Teddy Wizards is showing in. Yeah, Teddy Wizards is supposed to have won 7 out of 12 by rating. Instead, it's won all but 1. So some of these decks are showing up. Hydra Wizards is still on here. Then I think I made some notes about the top 25. Oh yeah, an interesting thing. 25th rated deck before Class A championships was Hydra Wizards, and where are they now? Yeah, Grim Frozen Tales knocked them all the way down to 41. And this was after they won in round 1. Zombie Dragons also got knocked out to Grim Frozen Tales. Where is Grim Frozen Tales? Yeah, Grim Tales with most random partners is not all that good, I don't think. And part of the way my ratings work for decks is they start at, like, I think midway between 1500 and the average rating of their factions. So since Grim isn't great and Frozen isn't great with every faction, Grim Frozen doesn't start out as something that my program expects to be great. So it takes longer for Grim Frozen Tales to prove itself and get to a high ranking than other decks, because my program looks at it and says, well, I think maybe it's just getting lucky because Grim isn't that great and Frozen isn't that great. I mean, they're both good, but they're not that great. And so this is why we've got, like, Big Hero Grannies is already coming in at 24th. Beauty and the Beast Werewolves coming in at 16th. This is a case, Werewolves have had a great season. Beauty and the Beast have had a great season. So as a result, Beauty and the Beast plus Werewolves starts high, and then they win 12 out of 14. They're able to get up here to this high ranking. I think it was Sonus who said he really wanted to see what was going on with Geeks and Kung Fu. I'm going to tell you what's going on with Geeks and Kung Fu. I think, honestly, all that's going on with Geeks and Kung Fu is that Geeks are rated that high, and Kung Fu is one of the things I happen to try playing with them. Geeks random would be ranked highly. There is some synergy, though. Geeks likes to have some destruction, and Kung Fu has some good protection against certain things. So there is some synergy, and it's probably also a better Titan deck than it is a non-Titan. So it actually probably is a deck that makes some sense. But it's more just the fact that it's a Geeks deck, and it's a Geeks deck that has some capacity to break bases itself, so it's not hopelessly outdated. It's not outdated in the way that, like, Elder Geeks used to be maybe the 4th best deck in the game, and now it's ranked 12th among the decks that I have actually tried, and got its butt handed to it last year. Avenging Knights has also showed up here. A lot of these decks are going to sort of show up here for a while, and then the real question is going to be, are they still ranked top 25 after they lose a match? That's the real question, because here in the tournament, there's 13 decks left, and I don't think none of them lost a match in round 1. So these are all a combination of draws and wins that these decks have, so they haven't taken a rating hit yet. Most of the decks in the field are going to get knocked out by getting 2-0'd by some other deck before the tournament ends. So any of these new decks in here are facing opponents that could 2-0 them. And a lot of the time, if they're the highest rated decks in the field, a draw is going to cost them ratings. So most of these decks, they could drop out of the top 25 before the tournament ends. Frozen Avengers, I think, is in the top 25 now because it won in 3A, right? No. It drew with Beauty and the Werebeast. So Beauty and the Werebeast is actually lower than this now because I didn't get round 3A in this list. If this match produces a winner, the winner will be top 25. Teddies and Wizard, Mages, Beauty and the Beast. It is a perfect pairing, at least as of numbers that are 1 round old, because they are 1.5 rating points away from each other on this list. So that would be your feature match if we were going to, if, these decks were battling in a huge ring with, people putting bets on them in Vegas. This would be your feature match where it's like, pick him. 1695 versus 1694. Ninja Knights, yeah. So both the Ninja decks, because Ninja's T came in so recently, well, Zombies was seeded in. Ninja Zombies is not a top 25 deck. I've played them enough, at least without a Titan. I've played them enough to know that they are really good, but not that good. Ninja Zombies with a Titan, maybe they are. At least among the decks that I have tried, they're quite a bit better, I can tell you. They don't have inconsistency issues. Ninja Knights, we'll see. Either of these decks, if they go on a run, could make top 25. So there's probably still some changes to be made with which Class A decks make it up here. But it is kind of cool to see that there are some Class A decks that are able to make it up here and get ratings that are comparable to a mid-tier Geeks deck. All right. At this point, I think I've probably babbled about this stuff as much as I need to. I know I'm going to have a rehearsal and some other things to do tomorrow, but probably the day after tomorrow, I'm going to be starting to work on this and see if maybe I can send a couple of these decks home or get them to prove that they shouldn't be sent home right away, and then get on to round 4. And, you know, we're getting close to... We're not getting quite as close to having a champion as there being 13 decks left looks like, because after all, there's still 3 decks that haven't lost a game, but the field's getting smaller. There are fewer candidates. We're getting to the point where every deck that's still in the field has had to do impressive things to survive. So we're getting there, and hopefully I can finish it before the year ends. Happy smashing, everyone.